In our last video, we were talking about our Class A motorhome, all the problems we had with
Yep.
it, and we couldn't get any help from the manufacturer other than telling us that we had to wait for months and months before we could bring it up to the repair facility and get it fixed.
Yes.
So in the meantime, we contacted an attorney. The attorney I found online, and he was a specialist in RV lawsuits.
Yes.
So we found him. I contacted him. We sent him a stack of paperwork about that tall with all the bills, all the repairs, all the money we've spent
Yeah.
repairing this motorhome, and just to see what he had to say if we had a
if we had a
lemon
case
law
or not.
case or what it was. So it just happened that we lived in Florida, and the lemon law in Florida, of course, only pertains to the chassis. Of course, we had problems with the chassis and had been at the Freightliner dealer numerous times and not able to be repaired. But we just happened to be up in Wisconsin.
Yes.
And we had it serviced and to a Freightliner dealer up there.
Yes.
And they have a stronger lemon law that applies to the entire RV.
Yes.
So the attorney said, well, what we'd have to do is allow the manufacturer to do the repairs,
Yes.
since they offered to do it. And they could take up to 45 days. And then after that, if they didn't repair it satisfactorily, then we could go ahead with a lawsuit.
Yes.
So we decided, fine.
Fine. Well,
We'll
let
do
them
it.
pick it up.
So we contacted the manufacturer. They sent a driver down
Yes.
to pick up the RV and
They
transport
drove
it
it
up
all the
to
way.
it was like 2,000 miles up to the factory. And we didn't hear, and we actually dropped it off at the dealer that we bought it from in La Mesa.
In Fort Myers.
Fort Myers. And so we didn't hear anything
Nothing.
for about a month and a half. And
Yes.
then I received an email, and the manufacturer told me that they had almost all the repairs complete. They were just waiting on a few parts.
Yep, that was it.
And so we were kind of actually excited at
We're
that
excited,
point
but
that
like,
we wouldn't have to go through the
A
whole lawsuit or
lawsuit.
anything
We just
like
wanted
that.
it fixed.
Yeah. And so I said, fine. I emailed back. I said, great.
Great.
Let me know when it's done.
Yep.
And so about 2 weeks later, actually 44 days after they picked it up,
Yes.
the dealership called and told us that they have our RV sitting there,
Yeah.
that we need to come pick it up.
Yep.
And I said, well, I didn't know anything
Didn't
about
know it was
it.
even coming
I didn't
here.
even know it was even coming back. And this was in November,
Yes.
I think, wasn't
Yep.
it? November.
Yep.
And so, of course, we said, well, great.
Excellent.
So we drove down, and walking up to the RV.
Oh.
First thing I see is it's just filthy. And the dealer said, well, it was really, really dirty, and
Yeah.
they cleaned it up a little
Well,
bit.
we tried to give it a good wash for you before you popped in.
Yeah. So the next thing we saw is a big crack across the front windshield.
Yes.
I said, well, that's not good.
No.
And then we walked inside, and it was just filthy. It's like they took a dust sprayer and
Just
sprayed dirt
tossed it
everywhere.
everywhere.
It was just, the inside was terrible. The tile, there was cracked tile all over the place. So we said, okay, well,
That's fine.
so we picked it up. No word from the manufacturer at all.
Nothing. No, they didn't
So
say.
I didn't email them. I didn't say anything.
Nope.
So we took it, we cleaned it all up,
Cleaned it.
got it washed, and made a note that the windshield was cracked and everything.
Yeah. Well, we made
And-
that with the dealership. We're like, hey.
Yeah. And then we took it out for a weekend trip to
Yes.
see if anything was fixed. Of course, nothing was fixed except for the easiest. Like, they fixed a few latches, they fixed a couple things here and there. I think they fixed
Some
the
dented.
cracking in the shower.
Yep.
The alignment was still off. We still had a roof leak from one of the slides. We had a leak in the shower
Yes.
ceiling.
That
yet.
still was there.
The smell was as bad as ever.
Yep, as bad as
Just
ever.
as bad as ever. And so
And the weekend we stayed in it, it got cold. So I'm like, oh, I'll turn on the fireplace. We've got it. Fireplace didn't work.
fireplace didn't work. Two outlets didn't
Two
work.
outlets didn't work.
We had water leaking in from the control panels, shorting out the control panels.
Shut down the whole coach.
Yeah. it was a disaster.
Like-
And so about just then, the manufacturer emailed me.
Yes.
And said, well, how is everything? Is everything to your satisfaction? I said, well, no. So I gave him a list.
This is what
And
wasn't fixed. And
the guy said, he was their legal correspondent, and he said, he assured me when they took it up there that he was going to fly out and make sure that the repairs were done
Yep.
correctly. Well, apparently he didn't do that. So I said, well, you were supposed to go out there. And he said, well, whatever.
Well, no, then it was like, well, maybe we can take it back to the factory again.
Yeah, he said,
I'm
well,
like-
we'll take it back and repair it again. I said, oh, no, you won't.
Not for
He said,
4,000
and
miles.
then he said, well, we'll take it to the dealer and they can fix it. I said, we've been through that for the last 9 months now.
Yeah.
So it had been in for repair a total of 9 months totally,
out
and
of
we've
a year.
only had it for a year, and so then he said, I said, it's not going back to the factory.
No.
And it's not going to a dealer, so you better figure out something else that's going to be done with it. And he said, well, I'll have to fly out there and I'll have to inspect it,
Yeah,
and then we can go
inspect
from there. I said, great, come on out.
Super.
Well, then he emailed me back, and this was November yet,
Yep.
and he said, well, I can't get out there till February.
Because of the holidays.
Because of the holidays,
I
because
don't
it's
wanna
too
travel.
difficult to travel during the holidays. And I said, all right, that's enough. So I contacted the lawyer, and the lawyer said, I gave him all the information, and he said, all right, I'm going to write him a letter and, basically tell them everything that you've told them
Yeah.
and see what they say. Well, the next day, the manufacturer wrote a letter back, or actually called him on the phone.
Yeah, called the lawyer
and
on the
said,
phone.
no problem, we'll buy it back.
We don't want to go to court.
And that's going to be the end of that. And so we said, great. And so the attorney actually got them to pay back all of our insurance,
Yep.
all of our storage costs, all
Repairs.
of our initial purchase price, our tax, all the repairs we put into it. Basically, the only thing we lost is a lot of time and a lot of things we did ourselves. And a little bit of storage fees and
A little lack
some
of travel.
other,
A lot of lack of
basically
travel.
traveling around just to get it repaired was not covered, but most everything else was covered. So we said, okay, fine. When can we expect that? Well, nobody knew.
No,
So
that was January, wasn't it?
that was that was the,
Like mid-January?
I think it was the beginning of January.
beginning?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we said fine. So then we started shopping for a new coach, and we said, okay, we better have something. We were going to try a used one because the first two we bought were new, and
Yeah.
this one was just such a disaster. We didn't want to do that again.
Nope.
It ruined our whole summer
Well,
of
it
travel.
ruined a whole year.
So we started looking for a new coach, but we didn't know when they were going to buy that one back, so we couldn't really pull the trigger
Plan
on
it, yeah.
anything. So we waited, and we actually put a deposit down in January on the one that we're in right now.
Yes.
This, American Eagle. It was a 2018.
Yep.
It was a factory demo. So it was never titled. It was supposedly refurbished by the factory.
Yep.
So we put a deposit down on that. And about, I think, March,
Yep. It was March.
the manufacturer finally sent us the payment. And so we said, okay, great.
Great.
We're gonna this one was sitting out in Arizona. We said we're gonna book a flight.
Yep.
And we got the deposit down and everything. We're gonna book a flight, we're gonna fly out to Arizona and pick that up.
Yep.
And we're gonna drop this one off at La Mesa in Fort Myers.
Yep.
And we coordinated it all with the manufacturer.
Yep.
And so we got down to La Mesa that morning. We had a flight in the afternoon. We got down there that morning,
To drop it off.
and La Mesa tells us, they said, well, we don't have room for this.
No one's told us this.
We've never heard
We've
anything
heard
about
nothing
this.
about it."
We don't know anything about it. And they've been coordinating on this whole thing.
Yeah.
Because they've been in the loop on the whole thing all the way through. And they said, well, we don't know anything about it, and we just don't
We
have
don't
room
have
for
any
it, so
room.
you can't. And meanwhile, half the parking lot's empty. And I'm like, really? Well, what are we supposed to do with it now? They said, well, that's up to you. You'll have to figure it out. So I think we called the manufacturer and couldn't get a hold of anybody.
Nope.
And so everybody gave us the runaround. So we actually had to put it in storage.
Yep.
And then fly out to Arizona to pick
Yes.
up our new one. And then when we came back, then we had to take it down there again.
Again.
So now And actually, that finally we dropped it off, but we're still, it's been, 4 months now?
Yes.
And we're still trying to mess around with the title and everything else because they didn't have all their paperwork.
Yeah, because we said when we dropped it off, are you sure we don't have to sign anything or give you anything? They're like, well, Mace's like, no, there's no big deal. Let's just
no
drop.
problem at all.
No one said anything.
Never heard another word from
Nope.
the manufacturer. Never heard
Until
another
now.
word until now, until we leave the state. So we ended up buying this 2018 American Eagle.
An executive demo.
Yes, and so that's the subject of our next video.
Yes.
All the problems and how we
Hassles.
ripped off on this one so far, and we've only owned it for 3 months.
Yes.
So this is going to be a whole nother adventure, and
Yes.
we're just looking forward to it.
Yeah,
So,
and we're going to take you guys with us.
yeah.